ahead.
Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and read Tom's bio. And I just want to also say that Lainey, his wife, is a co-affiliate leader of the Bay chapter of Helping Parents Heal with Beverly Wilson. And let me go ahead. Tom was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area and went to UC Berkeley, where he earned a bachelor's degree in business. Tom worked in corporate finance for companies such as Clorox, Gillette, and Safeway Stores. With those companies, he has lived and worked overseas in Asia and Latin America. His career culminated most recently with chief financial officer roles at 2 different companies. Tom is married to Marilene, who he met in Brazil. They are the proud parents of Kevin and Gustavo. Kevin transitioned in 2018 after a 3.5-year battle with cancer. Kevin's personality continues to come through for the family, as well as for some of his friends. Tom's grief and Kevin's prodding prompted him to write Relentless, From Both Sides of the Veil, which was published a few months ago. Gustavo is 21 years old, a junior at Boston University. The family still calls the San Francisco Bay Area home. Tom and Marilene are co-affiliate leader, or actually Marilene is a co-affiliate leader of the Helping Parents Heal Bay Area chapter. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Tom Madsen.
Wow, that's very kind of you, Elizabeth, and thank you again for permitting me to speak to your group. And I just want to say thank you to all you wonderful parents for showing an interest in enjoying this conversation. I have to tell you that I think the step that you've all taken in participating in and joining Helping Parents Heal is probably, certainly among the best, if not the best, that Lainey and I have taken in our healing journey. And I'm confident that all of you will find it the same way. So kudos to you for taking this step and joining Helping Parents Heal. Elizabeth gave you the cliff notes on my biography, and so you kind of know that we're, West Coasters. We're in California, and Lainey, my wife, who is on my screen, the better looking one of the two of us, two pictures over, is from Brazil. I guess I'll start, since you know the bio, I guess I'll start with what was Kevin like? Kevin, first of all, passed in June of 2018, just 1 month shy of his 20th birthday. Kevin had fought cancer for 3.5 years. Twice had been in remission, but twice it returned. And from the time that he was a little kid, he was just a stunningly good-looking kid. Let me show you a picture of him a little bit later. This is, if I can get the glare off the screen. Let me just see if I can make this. This is Kevin in his varsity football uniform at San Ramon Valley High School near here in California. He was a stunningly good-looking kid. Even from a young age, you could see that he was going to be athletic. At the age of about 7, he had the physique of a 12-year-old, and he was just chiseled. He was very fast. He was very strong, and he dabbled in all the sports. He played baseball, basketball, soccer, and later on some rugby and high school football. And he played them hard. He played all those sports with drive and with passion. Kevin was extremely bright, perhaps not as academically motivated as some of his peers. He was the kind of guy that when he got fired up about a class, he could ace it. But if he didn't have much use for the class, or if maybe he didn't cotton well with the teacher, he would get the B or the occasional C if the class didn't really float his boat. But he did like history classes, and he often did well in those, and he could ace most any class when he really got after it, when he really got motivated by it. Kevin outwardly was not that demonstrative of a person, but he was very sensitive. He picked up everything that was going on in the room, even if he didn't act on it, or if he didn't show you that he picked it all up. So he had a good wire to how everybody in a room was feeling, what the interpersonal dynamics were, and what was going on with each of the individuals in the room. Now, we all have our flaws. Kevin's was, I would say, both a good quality was his resolve, and his determination, and his force of will. I guess the flip side of that was he could be quite stubborn. Yeah, you heard me say it, buddy. You heard me say it. He didn't like no. He always had to have the last word, and he always thought that he knew more than we did. And I just can't imagine where he got that, because I was never like that as a teenager. I just know it didn't come from me. Another thing that was funny about Kevin was he had this amazing ear for languages and voices. So he grew up speaking, his first 2 languages were actually Portuguese and Spanish. Portuguese because of the Brazilian connection from Laney. Spanish because we were in expatriate assignments the first few years in Chile and Argentina, so he's picking up Spanish from everybody else. And English was actually his 3rd language that he got with me. So he had a great ear for languages, and he also had a great ear for accents. And he could do Scottish accents, he could do Asian accents, he could do all these distinct accents, and he did them so well. And his favorite, and the one that always got all of us, frankly, laughing till we cried, was he could curse like a South Boston longshoreman, and it was spot on. It was just perfect. It was pretty raunchy, but it was funny. And so he had this. Laney and I wanted to see him go into performing, acting or performing, but he never seemed to be interested in that. He seemed more to be interested in the sports side of things. So the household was the 4 of us, me, Laney, Kevin, and his younger brother by 15 months, Gustavo. And Gustavo, as Elizabeth said, goes to Boston University now. He's a junior there. The boys at first were growing up in, like I said, in Chile and Argentina. Later, we moved to near Boston, where I was working with the Gillette company. And then finally, in 2006, we moved back to the San Francisco Bay Area, where the boys spent, I would say, their formative years there, late elementary school and all of their high school years here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So as Kevin started high school, he was living, I wanted to be him. He was living the dream. He was playing freshman football. Within a month or two of becoming a high school freshman, he had a girlfriend. I don't think I had a girlfriend until I was a junior in high school. And he was just living the dream. He was like, all the things I had ever aspired to or wanted to do or be, Kevin seemed to be doing those. And so he had a terrific freshman year and also sophomore year at high school. Finished 2 seasons of school, almost 2 years of school, and did finish 2 seasons of high school football, including winning a coach's award for junior varsity football. But then in December of 2014, he had a lump on the back of his left thigh. And we thought that it was a muscle knot and that it would resolve itself, but it lingered. And then we suggested that he try and kind of roll it out with one of those foam rollers that you might use on your yoga mat. And it hurt him. And so we got him to the doctor, and to make a long story short, they did a biopsy, and the lump came back as a form of sarcoma known as rhabdomyosarcoma. Well, cancer, this type of cancer is not that common, but of the cancers that young people end up getting, it's the most common. Maybe 3% or less get this kind of cancer. And so here he is, a sophomore in high school. He's been diagnosed with cancer. It's right around Christmas time of 2014. And he needs to embark on a series of chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, and more chemotherapy. And so he starts on these regimens in late December, early January, 2014, 2015. Loses his hair to the chemo. Of course, he's sterilized by the chemo as well. And he's, at the same time that he's kind of sick from chemo and radiation and surgery and losing his hair, he's desperately trying to keep up with school. So the theme over the next couple of years is treatments, hair loss, sickness from the toxicity of the treatments and the chemotherapy, desperately trying to cling to some participation in school where his friends were. We finally realized that was an untenable situation, so we changed his school schedule, got him into a independent study situation where he could go when he was feeling like he could do it. And he kept a couple of classes at high school so he could see his friends. So after 11 months of treatments, he goes into remission. Our good friends throw him a big party at the local community center and hired a local Motown band that played there, Pride and Joy. And, Kevin gets back to trying to restart his life and get back to normal. Fast forward to his junior year, and he comes back, this cancer comes back. A fresh round of treatments, again the hair loss, again the poisonous chemo that made him sick, and again the challenging school schedule and trying to keep up. Remission again, and he graduates high school with a 3.1 GPA, which we were immensely proud of, considering that he'd had about 2 years worth of treatments that he was battling at the same time he was trying to keep up academically. And he goes to summer school and takes trigonometry and other classes, and he aces those in summer school. At one point, Marilene and a good friend of hers took him for radiation at 7 a.m, followed by chemotherapy in the later morning for 2 hours. And as they were leaving the chemotherapy appointment, and you have lingering nausea from the chemotherapy, Kevin said, I got to go to my advanced placement European history test. So those of you who have teenage kids or young adult kids know that these AP tests are part of the whole college acceptance drill, right? We had bought and paid for this test maybe 3 months before, but we didn't know at the time that we had bought and paid for the test that he would be undergoing radiation and chemo in the same day. So I had no expectations that he would keep that test. I mean, it was $150 or whatever it was, and it was gone, and I didn't care. And Lainey said to Kevin, Kevin, you don't have to do this. You know, neither your dad or I expects you to keep that test. And, you know, you're not well here. You've had radiation and chemo in one day. You haven't eaten anything. He says, no, I'm going to keep the test. She said, can I get you anything to eat? And he said, I'm sorry, Mom. I just can't, you know, because after that chemo infusion, he was nauseous for hours afterwards. So he goes after radiation and chemo, and not eating, and getting up at 6 a.m. and takes the AP Euro test, and he passes the test. And that's one anecdote of several that I read about that demonstrate Kevin's determination and stick-to-itiveness and force of will, of which Lainey and I are immensely proud. One of the reasons that I wanted to share that anecdote was because that force of will permeates, as I say on the front of the cover, on both sides of the veil. But I'll leave that teaser now for just a second and come back to it. So Kevin graduates high school. He goes to not junior college. He goes to St. Mary's College here near us in Moraga. Finishes his freshman year there, but unfortunately, in the course of his freshman year there, the cancer came back for the third and last time. Kevin did get through and pass his freshman year at St. Mary's College, but finally, he, after being a valiant warrior for 3.5 years, he just had no reserves left, and he finally just had nothing left in the tank, and finally on June 27th of 2018, he passed. So that is the before picture. That's kind of part one of the story. So then we toggle the point to part two of the story, and those first few days after he passed, as I know everyone on this call has felt, you know, you just feel like you just deposited on another planet, and you know, nothing you'd ever learned or nothing you'd ever believed held true. It all seems to have meant nothing. No values you were taught held together, and you felt as if you just had this massive gaping hole right through the middle of you that nothing would fill. And so we were like that. And I had actually left my CFO job a few weeks before that so that I could be with Lainey and Kevin, because he was needing around the clock support. And I didn't think it was right to keep working, so I quit. And I came home, and I couldn't work for many months after that. We were just shell-shocked and in grief. But that drive and that force of will that Kevin had showed in life then started to show itself again, just days after he passed. About 4 days after he passed, we have a gazebo just outside the window that I'm at here, off of our deck, and an owl about 6 inches tall perched up in that gazebo while we were there, and just stayed there and watched us and accompanied us while we sat there for 20 or 30 minutes. Not afraid of us, just observing us, tilting its head this way and that as one or the other of us were talking. And I've never seen an owl behave like that before, so that struck us. 2 days after that, there's a dragonfly story. So Lainey is at the kitchen sink, which overlooks the front of our house. There's a kitchen window there, and her car was parked just outside. She called me over to the kitchen window. She says, look at that. And I go, what? And I didn't see what she was looking at. But then I did. There was a bright red-orange dragonfly perched at the tip of her car antenna. These, I don't know about where you all live, but these are not that common around here in California. They're pretty rare. So this dragonfly is perched on the top of her antenna. It's there for 10 minutes. We go outside, we say hello, we talk to it, I take some pictures. After 10 minutes, it takes off. And I thought, well, that's that, and it's gone. And I'm still standing out by the car when apparently the dragonfly has just taken a lap around the house, one circuit, comes back, perches in the same spot on the top of her antenna, facing in exactly the same direction that it was before. And it stays there for 10 minutes again. Dragonfly does this 6 times. And so we're kind of going, what's going on here? This is unprecedented. This is unusual. And dragonflies start playing a significant role in our lives from then on. They show up in all kinds of different ways, and they show up in different forms and in medium readings and in all kinds of different ways. So we came to study up a little bit about dragonflies, and many of you probably know that in some Asian and Latin American cultures, some Asian and Native American cultures, the dragonfly signifies transformation. So it started to take on even more significance than even the little tickle that we got those first few days after Kevin passed. Now, Kevin appears to be both determined, forceful, and he seems to be a multimedia kind of player. He shows up in so many different ways. We talked about birds and insects. He's showed up he messes around with some of our electronic devices. Both of our cell phones have been manipulated by him, and I could go on at some length about that. He shows up in birds that fly over our back deck, hummingbirds, butterflies. He's manifested in some ways for some of his friends and his the girl he loved but never they were never a boyfriend and girlfriend, but they cared about each other, and she's had experiences. He's showed up for us in films that we watch, and one of his favorite media appears to be license plates. And he has shown up with license plates, and in response to some of our requests in some just, gobsmacking ways. I think I'll share one of those anecdotes real quick here. I mentioned that when Kevin was sick, I left my job as CFO after what turned out to be the better part of a year sabbatical because of Kevin's illness and his passing. I then started work again, and I started working for this organic and sustainably raised meat company. And in that role, I was thinking about hiring a finance director, but I had some doubts about the candidate, and I was kind of waffling. I was really on the fence about the candidate. So on a long, long drive, I asked Kevin for guidance. I said, Kev, should I hire this guy? Just like I'm speaking to you now. And I said, hey, you know, I'm really on the fence about this guy. I've got these concerns. Should I hire him? And give me a sign. Only don't give me an ambiguous sign. I want a sign that tells me clearly yes or no. And then, as it turns out, on this long drive, I was going to be on the phone with the candidate at 2 p.m. I made the request of Kevin at noon. So I'm driving, and I have 2 hours to drive before I've got to be on the phone with the guy. Time goes on, and I'm looking everywhere. I'm looking at billboards, I'm looking at cars passing by for license plates. I'm looking at clouds in the sky. I'm looking for anything that could be a sign from Kevin. And I'm not getting anything. And time goes on, 1:30, 1:45. I'm getting close to my 2 o'clock deadline. Nothing's happened. 1:55 goes by. Nothing. At 3 minutes to 2 p.m., right before my deadline, a car passes by me on my left. And its license plate read 570 YES. And I was just gobsmacked. I couldn't believe it. I did a double take, looked at it again to be sure I got it right, and I had. And so I had my answer. So I was supposed to hire this candidate, who did turn out to be a good hire, by the way. But there's a couple of interesting wrinkles to that license plate. One, 57, as you saw a moment ago in this picture, was Kevin's varsity football number. And that number keeps showing up over and over and over again in different places. Clearly, the YES was an unambiguous answer to the request I made of Kevin. But the answer to my request came through when the clock read exactly 1:57. Furthermore, that license plate was a personalized license plate. 570 YES is a 6-character plate. Regular cars in California have 7-character plates if you don't get a personalized or vanity plate. So that car turned out to be one of 14 million cars. There's only one license plate in all of California that has those characters on it. So just to recap, at 1:57 p.m., a 1 in 14 million license plate drives by me with an unambiguous answer to the request I had made. It's got the number 57 in it again. And the guy turned out to be a great hire. So I was gobsmacked, and I keep using that word, but it was just amazing. And there have been other license plates that Lainey and I have experienced that Kevin keeps manifesting in that way, and it's stunning when he pulls it off. But it's also heartwarming too. It's such a comfort to know that he's hearing your requests and he's acting on them, and you get such a warm feeling from it. So anyway, like I said, Kevin has been a multimedia player from the Beyond the Veil, and he's shown up in all these different ways. And sometimes I actually think he's kind of showing off, and but it all so fits his personality. He's so insistent and so forceful when he comes through that it always comes across as much more than you would need just to be convinced. So like if you were convinced at 10, Kevin comes through at 30 and he says, okay, you got it? You got it? So he's forceful. And he's been a big part of our steps in healing and helping us heal. So those are among the different ways that he's showed up for us. So I guess the comments I would sort of wrap up with, maybe Elizabeth, before perhaps opening it up to group questions potentially. So what prompted me to put this all out in a book. I started writing just as a way of expressing and really kind of releasing and purging my own grief. And pretty early on, about 4 months after Kevin passed, Lady and I were at a gallery reading with a psychic medium. His name's Bill Phillips. And Bill Phillips clearly connects with Kevin, and Bill Phillips says to me, "Are you writing something?" And I go, "Well, yeah, kind of. I mean," he says, "Are you keeping a journal or something like that?" I said, I've been writing something. Hey, Kevin's helping you with that. Kevin says he wants you to keep writing. And so I kept writing. And at first it was just purging my own grief. Later, I began to feel like it was actually helping me. And after that session with the medium, I felt like I owed it to Kevin to keep writing. And then I began to think, well, heck, if this is therapeutic and healing for me, might it be useful for others? And so I promised Kevin, and the promise is there in the front of the book, I promised Kevin that I would do this, that I would write, that we would write that book, because I'm sure he's helping. And so over about 18 months, we cranked it out. And I do sense him and feel him sometimes. I mean, sometimes the writing could be a chore. Somebody like I think Joe McQuillan might tell you this, who's with us. Howdy, Joe. You know, sometimes the writing is really tough. Sometimes I spend a day, I might write a page, and then I reread the page and I don't like it and I scrap it. Other times I get into a zone and I'll write and I'll write and I'll write and I'll look up and I've done 4 pages and I look at the clock and it's only been 2 hours. And then I reread it and I go, it's perfect. And then some of the paragraphs I go, damn, I don't remember writing that. So I'm getting some help. In those times when I'm in that zone, I'm getting some help clearly, and it's coming from Kevin. So I felt like, gee, you know, if this is this therapeutic for me, perhaps it would. It's kind of the story that I wish Lainey and I had 3 years ago. You know, when Kevin was sick and before he passed. You know, if I'd had this story back then, we might have possibly done a few things a little differently. But then the last reason that I think I'll mention about writing the book was, you know, I think more men need to kind of play in this space. You know, I take my hat off to Joe McQuillan, in case you don't know him, who's on this call, and Joe McQuillan and Casey Gaunt. Gee, that sounds like a couple of gunslingers, doesn't it? Yeah, Joe. You guys sound like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid or something. But there needs to be more men doing this. There needs to, you know, American men grow up in this kind of stoic, stiff upper lip, emotional closet, and I think it's unhealthy for everybody and the society. And so I'm a big believer that more men need to play in this area, and if more men participate, we can help balance the conversation. And I think that's the way Kevin feels. I think I've been talking for about 30 minutes straight, and I don't want to be the only one talking in this conversation. So if that's a reasonable spot to pause, Elizabeth, I'll...
Perfect. And not only that, I just want to say that I have experienced how forceful and determined Kevin is as well, because I had the good fortune of having Tom and Lainey come and visit me here in Cave Creek, as I said at the beginning. And it was pretty amazing because, first of all, they were able to find Morgan's Bench all by themselves. I wasn't able to go with them initially. And it's a hard thing to do. There are people here in Cave Creek who still haven't figured out how to take the right path to get to Morgan's Bench. So that was amazing. Secondly, we had an incredible roadrunner come straight up to us while we were having coffee at an outdoor cafe in the very beginning. And the roadrunner looked at us and it was so interested in us. And they're very, very they're not friendly at all. The roadrunners aren't. It's very difficult to get good pictures of them because they're always going the opposite direction. We also had this incredible red-tailed hawk that was flying above us as we were going to Morgan's Bench, and it circled above us, which I see vultures doing. I don't see hawks doing. They usually go straight over, and it's always wonderful when we see them, but they never do that kind of thing. So those were amazing things. But I wanted to ask you, Tom, as a man, what do you do with people who don't believe these signs that you're getting? Do you talk to people about these besides just your very close friends and family? Or obviously now it's in a book. What do you do to, is this something that you're able to talk with people about?
Yeah, in terms of my ability to speak with people about it, I'm an equal opportunity sharer of stories. Not everyone is ready to, I guess, subscribe to the other side or the afterlife, and I'm not here to browbeat anybody into believing anything. If they're a skeptic and if they're happy in their life, and if it's working for them, knock yourself out. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. My agenda is that by me and us opening to this possibility in this universe, it is an immensely healing mindset and an immensely healing experience that I fear that those people who are skeptical of it are just, a lot of them are set up for such misery and such continuing lifelong grief that I just feel sorry. I'd like to wrench them all out of it. But if someone is predisposed to just reject all of this, I believe that each one of us has to come to this on their own time, and we may each have different triggering events that force us or cause us to open to this. And in our case, I would say, and everyone here, I would say, we were cracked open. I mean, and when you're cracked open like that, when you have an experience like that, you're cracked open, you're broken, your grief is spilling out of you like life's blood. But by virtue of being cracked open, you are more open. And if you pay attention and if you remain open, you may be able to find you're able to receive something. And so, but if you're a skeptic and you want to dismiss me and everything I'm saying, hey, that's your prerogative. That's just fine. I think if you come along for the ride, you will be amazed and you'll never look back. But not everyone's ready. So I'll share the story with anyone, but some will just turn their backs on it. And, hey, that's.
Well, speaking of sharing the story, I was going to ask you, Ana Molina is our new Helping Parents Heal en Español leader. She's our new affiliate leader. She's going to have Ingrid Honkala speak about her book that was translated into Spanish. Ingrid is from Colombia. I'm pretty sure that you must speak fluent Spanish. Would you be willing to talk about your experiences in her group? Because she's saying, I would love to have him speak in my group. Is that something that you would be willing to do?
Por supuesto.
That's wonderful. That's so exciting. And it's true that it's always wonderful to have a dad's opinion, because we have a huge majority of people who attend these meetings and who are part of Helping Parents Heal, who are moms. And of course, they frequently have significant others who they're influencing as well and helping to move forward and heal. but it is really great to have someone like you write a book about all of these incredible experiences and talk about them, and Joe as well, and Casey as well. And all of you are just wonderful to do so. And I was wondering what you would tell people here in the group about better ways to connect with their kids. I mean, how is it that you do this? Is it through meditation? Is it just from observing the signs? How is it that you're able to get so much information from Kevin, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably quite individual, and each is special. I mean, Joe and I have talked, and I would like to emulate Joe's experience and his approach, and equally Casey's got a slightly different type of experience. They're all unbelievably compelling in slightly different ways, and so it really gives me goosebumps when I have a chat with Casey or with Joe. In my case, I don't know that most people who seem to be getting some kind of connection with their children probably 80 or more % practice some sort of meditation routine. So I think, the majority of the people who are in this space would probably say, yeah, you should probably have some kind of a routine, regular meditation practice, because you need to, I believe that you can't be feeling strong emotions like stress or fear or anxiety or anger, which in these political days, it's pretty tough not to be, it's pretty wound up about stuff, right? But it's hard to have those kinds of feelings going on, and at the same time, I think, be open to these signals or these outreaches from your children. So meditation helps calm that and helps take that out of the mix. Other than the meditation thing, I think, in our own HPH chapter group, one of the things we talked about was when people are asking, gee, how should I better connect with my kids? I just said, have you asked them? Have you asked your kids to, it seems like an obvious thing, but a lot of it, because they're now disembodied, it doesn't occur to us to just ask them. And I've asked Kevin, so has Lainey. We've both asked Kevin for things many times since he passes. And his hit rate is pretty stunning. He delivers on a pretty high percentage of requests. So ask them to connect with you. And then when it comes to signs, not all signs are as as cut and dried or black and white as my license plate example. That one was special, but nevertheless, I think Kevin is connecting with us every day, and I'm certain that I don't get 100% of them. Maybe I get 15%. I don't know what I'm getting, but I think if you are open and paying attention, and if you sense something that you wonder if it's a sign from your past child, trust it. If the thought occurs to you, hey, was that from Jackie? Maybe it was Jackie that put that thought there. So trust it and thank them for it. So gratitude is key. And if you remain open and you have the dialogue going and you ask and you thank, I think most of you will find that it kind of generates its own extra momentum. And I want to hear everybody else's stories. In our HPH chapter, we just get such energy from the rest of the room when we go around the room and share each other's stories. It's so uplifting. It's been doubly healing from anything else that I've ever done. So I have so much respect and admiration for what you've created, Elizabeth, and how many people it's helped. And it's just whatever small role we play or I play I'm just humbled and honored. Thank you.
Well, I feel very grateful for you to say that, but at the same time, as I always say, and I think Irene feels the same way, it's the kids who do all of this. I mean, it's not us. And basically, I feel the same way that you do, that you just have to be open for whatever they are bringing to you and say thank you every time. And I think that that's the main key to this group, is that if they're telling us to do one thing, like do these Zoom meetings, okay, we'll do them. And make sure you're on there every night of the week. Okay, we'll do that, right, Irene? And it's something that I feel comes from them. I feel like they're expecting this, that they really, really want us to get together. And those meetings that you have in San Francisco, I know that you feel the kids there with you. I mean, it's so incredibly strong a feeling that they are participating. And we've had mediums who have come to our groups and who have said that they can see the kids standing behind us, hanging their arms around us and holding us as we're sitting around in a circle sharing. I know that that's true as well. And so I agree with you that it's important to be open, and that we have been cracked open by this experience. And if there's one thing that we can all agree on, we no longer fear death. It's just, you know, that's something that is not a fear whatsoever. And knowing that our kids are happy, healthy, and whole is the most important part of this journey for us right now, because not only are they happy, healthy, and whole, but they're also all together and they're having a blast. And they're all watching us right now. And they're just so excited about what you're saying. Kevin is so excited about it. I have a question from Lindsay. She's asking, I have heard to ask for something specific and also not to be specific. So I'm confused. Your advice, please. Do you have any advice about that in terms of signs?
Yeah. I'll give the advice in the form of a very short little story. So I was on a phone interview for my last job, and so I was on this phone, and so I had the phone on and I had the earbuds in, and my phone starts pixelating, big time, and the only thing you could make out was two little diamond type parallelogram shapes in the middle of the screen, and the rest of it was pixelating, and the two little things almost look like eyes. And Lainey and I had already seen Kevin acting up on our phones. And I saw this and I go, dude, if that's you, I know you're trying to tell me something, but I have no idea what it is. So I said, yeah, I don't know. Are you trying to warn me off of this job, or are you trying to say, take this job and do a good interview or something like that? So I had no idea what it was. 2 nights later, we're eating Chinese food, open a fortune cookie. It says, take the next opportunity you're offered. So finally got a more specific answer there. My experience is that, especially if it's in the case of, like, if you're asking a request for a yes or no answer, you know, ask for a specific answer so you're not left guessing. I don't think your child would begrudge you, you know, the specific ask. And again, the way Kevin seems to respond to these things, it's almost like he wants to give his answer and then he just goes, you know, like this, like, how you like me now? So I don't see much downside to asking for a specific answer to a specific question. Now, I would say this: if you're asking for a sign, then that could be a little more open-ended thing. So I was asking for a specific answer to a specific question. Should I hire this guy? Yes or no? Another time, Lainey was having a tough day and she just said, give me a sign, something. Just let me know you're listening and give me some comfort. And that sign turned out to be, we watched a film on Netflix that had all these different signs in the film that were from Kevin. They all resonated about things we had done with Kevin or places we lived, or parts of our life story. And so, I guess the answer to the person's questions, Lindsay, was it? I guess it kind of depends on the question, Lindsay, or what you're up against or what you need. But I wouldn't be, especially if you need an answer, should I sell my house? Yes or no? You need a specific answer to a question? I wouldn't be bashful about asking for a specific reply.
And expect the right answer from your kids, because they are pretty good at figuring things out. So that's beautiful. Amy is saying, my son was so much like Kevin: sports, football, love of history, affinity for languages and accents, and also
Wow.
big fan on campus. And I would say that the affinity for languages, sports, football, and all that other stuff really links up well with Morgan as well. And I always think that it's funny how they piggyback in all of these meetings. But also, I just wanted to tell you that Roseanne is saying, and I agree with her, bravo to the dads who have bravely stepped forward to tell their stories. And she also has written a beautiful book called Believe about her son. But it is true that it's wonderful when dads step forward and write these books. And I must say that one of the first books that I ever read was by Mark Ireland, and it was Soul Shift: Finding Where the Dead Go. And that was a book that actually confirmed everything that I was already feeling about Morgan and my connection with him. And I thought, okay, I've got to meet this person. But it is something that's not nearly as common for dads to be doing this and writing these books. And so it is wonderful. And this book is so uplifting. It's such a wonderful book. I just want to tell everyone, if you have a chance to read it, I'm sure that you'll love it. It's, of course, the journey in the beginning is hard. It's always hard in these books, but at the same time, it's also very uplifting because Kevin is so funny and so such a great kid. And I know that he's very, very proud of you for writing it. And we only have 5 minutes left. Do you have any parting thoughts to leave us with, Tom?
Again, I think to all you parents out there, I think what we've all had to go through is, I think we would all agree, is something that we wouldn't wish on our worst enemy. And we were in another grief group for a while before Lainey and Beverly started this chapter of HPH, the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of HPH. And it was helpful for a little while, but there were people who had been in that grief group for years, and you could tell they were on a treadmill. They were not seeing an off-ramp, or maybe they wanted to stay there. I don't know. I don't know. But my hat's off to you for coming to HPH. I think, like I said earlier, you've taken one of the best steps you can possibly take toward your own healing. I know that our children don't want us to be wallowing in a pit for the rest of our lives. They're not, and they don't want us to be. I'm not saying that we're not going to continue to grieve. We do in a very different way, but we can find a way to still lead fulfilling lives. And one of the ways you live a fulfilling life is helping people in a community like this one. I mean, I can't tell you how wonderful it feels at the end of one of our HPH meetings. We just float out of there, and so do the other people. We even laugh a lot. We cry too, but we even laugh a lot in our meetings. And to see people, one couple lost their 2.5-year-old daughter. They joined our chapter within 2 months afterwards. I couldn't believe their courage. And they're one of the most participative and contributing couples in our group. And we couldn't do anything for 2 months. We were like, zombies for 4 or 5 months before we were able to do anything. So my hat's off to the people who have that kind of courage. my hat's off to, and I applaud all of you for participating in HPH. I think you will find it hugely healing. And once again, Elizabeth, I just can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you. And you know, it makes me think of the dinners that we used to have in the very beginning. A lot of us, including Mark Ireland and his wife Susie, we would go out to restaurants with big groups of parents who were all parents who had kids on the other side. And we'd have a big table and we'd be laughing and having so much fun and thinking about our kids and talking about them. And sometimes we'd have a waiter come up to us and say, the table next to us was asking what we're celebrating. And it was always so funny because we've been through the worst. And when we can be around parents who understand and who get it and who don't look at you slaunch-wise when you are having fun and you're enjoying yourselves, because our kids want us to do that. That's exactly what they want us to do. It really is great to find your tribe and to be able to be a part of that tribe. And I just wanted to say, Jenny and Dave are saying, Tom, thank you so much for being with us. Very comforting. 57, oh yes, I love it, which is wonderful. And Lindsay is saying, yes, I so do not want to be stuck in a grief hole. HPH has saved me, which is wonderful. Anna is saying, so now I didn't see what Irene wrote, but it must be that Carly speaks Spanish. So she's saying that she didn't know that, and she's sure that she's going to be supporting her at her first meeting, the presentation en Español. And if you would be willing to present for Anna, that would be fabulous. And I'm sure that you would have no problem doing so. So Amy's saying that her son's number was 55. So
I saw that. That's great. I feel a book brewing.
Which is wonderful. And then Iris, thank you, Tom. Wonderful encouragement for us. So thank you so much for coming and speaking to us. I feel so grateful to have been able to meet you guys in person. You're just the nicest people. And Irene, have you already unmuted everyone? If everyone would like to just unmute their computers and say thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everybody should read Tom's book.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Good to see you, dude.
Everybody should read your book, Tom.
Wonderful.
As well as yours.
Thank you. Yes, great book. Both of them are. And have a wonderful evening. And we'll see you guys
See you
back
tomorrow.
Gracias.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night. Bye.